Hello. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. How are you today? What's going on in your world? Hopefully, you're feeling all right. Everybody good? What's going on in your world today? This is Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. Several months into quarantine. I'm just realizing where I'm, looking at dates of things and, you know how you look through your papers and your work and everything like that. And, you begin to see the dates and it just kind of hits you upside the head just how long we have been in this quarantine environment. It's crazy, right? But we hope that you're doing okay. We hope that you are being safe, practicing your social distancing. Got your mask on, 6 feet, rolling your eyes at the people that get too close to you. Whew, this world we live in. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. What a great conversation we're going to have today. And, Black women in construction. When I talked about this show earlier, this guy said, hey, man, I'm going to watch that show because I'm going to need somebody to come over to the house and do some stuff. No. These sisters are building massive complexes and whatnot. That's the type of construction that we're talking about. Come over to your house and help you with your sun deck. No. Trying to make some roads and airports and skyscrapers and whatnot. That's what we're doing over here. Hazmat removal. All right. Let's get to it here. Happy Tuesday to you. Whew. I said it August 18th, 9:03 in the morning on the West Coast. Whew. Let's get to these headlines. Yeah. Well, the virtual Democratic National Convention is officially underway. Did you see that? It's supporting the opening night's theme of We the People. It featured a diverse group of speakers, including George Floyd's brothers. There were business owners, there were farmers, there were voters who supported Trump in 2016, even politicians who supported Trump. There were frontline healthcare workers. There's Americans who had been affected by COVID-19. And the convention also touted speakers from both sides of the aisle, like Amy Klobuchar, Bernie Sanders, John Kasich, past GOP gubernatorial candidate Meg Whitman. The DNC's opening night was capped off with a speech by Michelle Obama, who denounced President Trump as unfit for office, stating, Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He's had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is. That's my new t-shirt. It is what it is. During tonight's convention, the roll call vote happens, which formally nominates Joe Biden as the Democratic presidential nominee. Watch tonight across all your digital platforms. Check it out. Participate. This vote is very, very important. Congress is planning hearings and vote over recent Postal Service changes. This Saturday, the House of Representatives will convene for a rare weekend vote after swirling outrage over changes at the post office before Election Day. The bill would keep the Postal Service from making any changes to operations that were in place at the beginning of the year and furnish $25 billion in additional funding for the cash-strapped public service. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy is also set to testify in a couple of congressional hearings, first before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee on Friday, and then before the House Oversight Committee on Monday. This follows outcry over new policies critics say are intended to undermine the post office before the election, like relocating mailboxes away from low traffic areas and deactivating massive mail sorting machines to make room for package sorting from e-commerce sites like Amazon. A lawsuit was also filed by 17 individuals against DeJoy and President Trump. In the meantime, the Postal Service said it has stopped removing mailboxes and sorting machines for the next 90 days. Meanwhile, here in California, this just in from the California Black Media Network, Governor Newsom signed AB 1460 into law on Monday, August 17th. The new law requires California State Universities, the nation's largest four-year public university system, to provide courses in ethnic studies at each of its 23 campuses, beginning with the 2021 to 22 academic year, and requires CSU students to take a 3-credit course in ethnic studies in order to graduate beginning in the 2024-2025 academic year. This bill was introduced last year by Assemblymember Shirley Weber from San Diego. She's a professor emeritus at Africana Studies at San Diego State, go Aztecs, on behalf of the California Faculty Association, and with support from the legislative ethnic caucuses, the Black Caucus, Latino Caucus, Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. They all got down with Dr. Weber on this one, and it passed on August 3rd after legislators engaged in personal and passionate debates during committee hearings and on the floor of the Assembly and Senate, as each expressed their perspectives on the pressing need for our society to deal with its history of racial inequities. After 20 years, Oprah Winfrey's the Oprah magazine, will cease printing after December of this year. The staff of the famed publication was notified last Friday, and this news comes following the recent resignation of Hearst Communications, now former President Troy Young. According to staff in a New York Times story, he's accused of creating a toxic environment by making sexually suggestive comments about sex toys and email pornography to a senior editor. Founded by Winfrey in 2000, O magazine has a paid circulation of 2.2 million copies and a 10 million print audience, a Black subscriber base of 35%, and is second to Essence magazine in female readers. It's still unclear whether the decision to end printing came from Oprah herself or Hearst, and details of the 2021 strategy are still in the planning stages. Conservative media sensations Diamond and Silk, you know, those are those two Black women. I was going to say something not nice. Black women who, they're pro-Trump, and they've been really kind of cooning for all of us to get their messaging across. They're expected to release a book in which they are addressing issues of politics and careers, including how they were kicked out of Fox News. The pair were fired from Fox News' digital platform, Fox Nation, in April after they tried to push a conspiracy that the coronavirus infection and death rates in the United States were doctored to sully President Donald Trump's administration. The pair had also doubted the reality of a pandemic, even suggesting that 5G technology might be responsible for the coronavirus. The book is titled Uprising: Who the Hell Said You Can't Ditch and Switch? The Awakening of Diamond and Silk. It was first reviewed by the Daily Beast on Monday, and in it, Silk, whose real name is Rochelle Richardson, writes about their sacking from Fox. Here is the crazy thing, y'all. Fox News hosts like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham were questioning the same things we were questioning about the virus and the pandemic. The very same questions we had raised were being discussed openly on Fox News. When you really think about it, was this part of the systemic racism that everybody was talking about? Silk question. Yeah, right. These ladies right here, man. Those news headlines and more. BeachCityRadio.com, BeachCityRadio.com. Go up there, find some international news, information. That's what it is. And these days and time, we're just dedicated on building new media paradigms. We're just trying to communicate with our people from a global perspective, because now, you got to think global now. The diaspora needs our minds. It needs our efforts. It needs our clear thoughts. We need our prayers. We're in an interesting time here in these United States, and we need to keep our lens on global. And that's what we're doing around here. Coffee Conversations with Greg J, BeachCityRadio.com, Kalimba Song Coffee. So I'm driving around, the Southern California area, and I'm seeing massive construction projects. I go out here where we're based, Long Beach. You just go around the way from where my little studio is. They're building a ginormous bridge so that the new model of ships can get over and into the port and everything. And You go out there to the airport. They're getting ready for the people mover and the train coming in, making it more efficient for the folks, to come in. You go over there by the Inglewood, man, there must be about 15 of those ginormous cranes in the air. You go in that region of our area, and I'm sure those of you watching from all points around the country, United States, and maybe even over there in the continent of Africa, over there up in Europe, everybody wherever you're watching. I see you guys, checking in with Coffee Conversations. So thank you wherever in the world you're watching. But as we talk about these major, construction projects, and in my day, I don't mean to be, politically incorrect, but construction was a guy's job. Just now in these days of time, Black girl magic is everywhere we turn. Isn't it a beautiful thing? I love it. I really, really, really do love it. And I'm just so honored to, know these two women who are coming to sip coffee with me this morning. I'm still trying to figure out, like, how do they get into this and, what do they do? So, I know when I'm having my conversations with one of our guests, I'm asking a lot of questions because I'm low key just trying to find out. It's like, dang, that's a big job that you have. And I'm just trying to figure it out so I can have a understanding of it. But we're talking today about Black women in construction. And like I said, somebody was talking about, yeah, okay, I need them to come over to my house. No. We're talking about the ginormous heavy equipment, major infrastructure installations. I mean, these ladies are doing the doggone thing. And so I'm going to bring right here to the coffee table here. Let's see. This is Robin Thorne, Miss Robin Thorne. She's the CEO. Yes, the boss, CTI Environmental. Good morning.
Good morning.
And then here, look, this lady right here is one of my all-time favorites of all time. She's out there regulating. She has a long title, so I'm going to let her come in here and explain to us what it means. But I know she's one of the titles is Vice President of Diversity, Inclusion, and all that stuff. We're hearing that a lot about that. She's a big shot. Dr. Giovanna Brasfield. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How's everybody? First, before we get into it, how's your family and everything in this crazy COVID environment? How you doing there, Robin?
Oh, everything is wonderful. My family's good. I checked in with all of them this morning, and I'm doing good.
All right. That's what's up. And you, Dr. G?
Everyone's doing well, same. Very, very fortunate. And my I guess recent challenge is getting ready for the 6th grade, right, virtually on Thursday. So.
Yes. That school thing that's a whole nother conversation we need to have. How do you manage the school? And then you're a busy woman too. You got no time for no Zoom class. Oh, good stuff. Okay, so now, Dr. G, let's just tell the people give them the whole litany of your titles and then tell us what that means.
Well, good morning, everyone, and Beach Family. And thank you, Greg, so much for inviting me to participate along with Robin on this particular show and this topic. My name is Dr. Giovanna Brasfield. I serve as the Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion for Flatiron Construction. And then I also have the honor of serving as Links, which is a joint venture comprised of Balfour Beatty, Dragados, Flatiron, and Fluor, their inclusivity manager. We are assigned to build the automated people mover for the Los Angeles World Airport. So you talk about, what's going on over here at the airport. We're one of those projects going on over here. And it's such an honor to be in this seat, especially in this time where it's we're stepping up where it comes to more inclusion, more diversity. So it's great times.
So let me just ask you this, Dr. G. I see you all glammed up and looking all beautiful and whatnot. So you put your hard hat on and you go out to the construction sites. Is that you?
At times. Yeah, don't the heels fool you. But at times I'm going out there to check on some of the subcontractors or looking at workforce components. So my oversight on the automated people mover is workforce, youth engagement, certified firms, charitable givings, and then also just making sure that we have the connection back to our community.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Now, Robin Thorne, what exactly is CTI Environmental?
Oh, CTI Environmental is a lot, but where do I begin? So what we do, we save lives. We save lives out there in the construction field. My background is environmental compliance, environmental safety compliance. So that means that we're tasked with making sure that your employees go home at the end of the day safely, right? Because fatalities on job sites is a reality. So we help companies to make sure that they have all the procedures in place, the training in place, and the work plans in place in order to keep their employees safe. And then to prevent the companies from being fined, we make sure that they're following all environmental regulations so they're not contaminating our continent. And so that's what we do. However, I have to share this, preparation met opportunity, and I was able to become a licensed contractor in the state of California. So in that role, we're able to do demolition on buildings and abate hazardous materials, which means that we can get rid of contaminated soil, or what I call dirty dirt, or if there's some asbestos or lead-based paint, not in your home, but in your commercial facility, we can help with that as well.
Wow, that's incredible. So now you're going out. Okay, I got to slice this up, dissect this a little bit. So, yeah, those construction sites are very, very dangerous. And I think that those of us who are not, involved in that line of work, maybe that's an area that we really don't think about much. But I got to tell you, earlier this year, I went out with Greg Doolan to cook for the 5,000 construction workers that were out there at the stadium, the LA Rams stadium. And, it just struck me how large that project was. And, I was just remember thinking, you got to be your head on a swivel to make sure that you don't, hurt yourself. And then, to build a ginormous structure like you see, then, accidents can happen and all of that, and now they're talking about even the coronavirus is really ravaging the construction workforce over there. Talk a little bit about how you counsel major construction companies on staying safe out there.
Well, one of the challenges with construction, COVID-19, and safety is the process. And fortunately, I started my career in process engineering as a process engineer. So I understand that you can't be too restricted because you have a product to make or a job to do. So what you do, we go out and we evaluate the operation and we provide the best practices. So the CDC, the state, they have certain mandates, right? So for a site to remain open, they have to conduct a risk assessment, and then they have to develop a site-specific safety plan. So while the primes and builders are constructing and they're Googling, what is a risk assessment? What is a site-specific safety plan? And they get overwhelmed, right? Because they're not experts. And then they open themselves up to liability, because if you are a contractor who's tasked with building a building, why are you trying to guess at regulations? Right? So you'll call in a company like CTI and say, help us. Like I said, we'll go out, we'll do a site assessment, we'll see what the operations are and how we can implement a process that doesn't hinder their operation. But it's safety first and employees come first. So if you have to make a major adjustment, then that's what's necessary. But we try to help them to operate within the confines of OSHA, but still be able to build their project.
Wow, that's above my pay grade. I'm thinking, boy, that sounds like a lot of work. Now, what kind of what's your typical day? I mean, you must be crazy busy.
Well, my typical day is where you see me now, because I operate from the office oftentimes.
Shot caller.
No, earlier in my career, I was out in the field, and I say I paid my dues. I mean, I started as a process engineer where we made polyurethane foam. So I was out on the production line wearing a full face respirator hooked up to air. And I said, oh, I did not go to school for this. And that's when I changed over to the environmental compliance side. But the way I learned the business is by going out to the site. So as a general contractor, I'm able to hire others to do the work. And even when I started out as a one-person firm, I couldn't be everywhere and run the business. And so when I hired someone to do a job, I would go out to the job site and I'm observing, I'm taking notes and I'm learning. I remember our first freeway project. I was so unprepared. I couldn't even get out of the truck because I was excited, but they said, well, do you have this? Do you have that? I was like, oh no. So I had to stay in the truck and like look out the window because I didn't have all my gear. So, I mean, and then I was kind of glad because those cars whipping by at night and dark but yeah, I learned a lot by observing, and I do go out to job sites on occasion.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. G, now tell us a little bit about, okay, so the People Mover it's happening. I think that there are probably a lot of people who don't know what the People Mover project is. So explain that to us. What's going on with the People Mover?
So the People Mover, which is the APM, usually we call it, is a 2.25 elevated guideway project that's going to be the centerpiece of the LAMP, which is the LAX Landside Access Modernization Project. So it's going to change the face of LAX basically and help people get from terminal to terminal, improve congestion, and then also emissions around the airport. So we're really, really excited. We finished about March 2023, and there's so many jobs, there's so many inclusion efforts on this. And it's heavy lifting, but it requires a really great team that I have, and also which is the Los Angeles World Airport. And also for Flatiron Construction, we have a chance to work on some of the most iconic infrastructure projects throughout. And what that means is from bridge, highways, roadways, water treatment facilities, and restoration, toll roads. There's so many different facets that as Flatiron, we have a chance to participate. And in this particular project, we're working on mostly the ped walkways and bridges and a lot of the roads that connect to the automated People Mover.
All right. So now let me just ask you this question here. How did you, Dr. G, get into this business of construction, like major construction? How did you find your way into this line of work?
Oddly enough, I raised my hand. That's how it all started. So I raised my hand and I said, given the challenge, learn about this policy, understand how to get businesses certified so they can get more opportunities on various projects. And from that started the whole springboard. There was an initiative back with Caltrans that helped businesses get DBE certified. So I worked very closely with the Small Business Development Center in implementing and rolling out various initiatives. And then from there did exceptionally well. Went up and continued to work in the Bay Area with local hire initiatives as well as technical assistance training. And for me, it's partnering with people like a Robin, like a you who's out there with that expertise and providing the information to the various community groups. And so from there, went well, came back here, and then just work with Henselfeld prior and handle all of Southern California with inclusion and diversity and making sure some of these projects have major goals. So it's really essential to have a role where there's a diversity and inclusion professional in these persons, making sure that the project team is in the community, engaged in the community, and someone's monitoring those initiatives when it comes to inclusion. And so that's how I kind of, over the period of time, just kind of kept on raising my hand and got more and more challenges as my career expanded. And so now handling a almost $2 billion project for the design and construction of the APM, as well as other projects I'm working on with Flatiron, allows me to really have a different lens and making sure we have the local community involved and engaged on various projects, whether it be on the workforce side or the certified firm side, and especially my youth engagement. That's the bigger one.
That's important work because you hear a lot of protest around the community that say, hey, I don't see enough, people of color on these sites. And your job is, make sure that, hey, everybody has an opportunity to get in there. Now, what's the biggest obstacle that you see from the community? Because I'll give you mine. So I hear a lot, brothers will, like when I worked at the radio station, they would call and say, hey, there's not enough Black people on the construction site. And you hear this out in the street, out in the community. But then when, people like yourself come along and say, hey, okay, here's all of these opportunities. Now they my brothers and sisters either don't come to the orientation to forget the information, or they're not prepared with the proper licenses, accreditations that you need to do. If I'm a bricklayer, I need to have certain credentials, right? And so maybe they don't have that. What is the biggest obstacle that you see that the people are shortchanging themselves before we start pointing the finger at the big companies?
Wow, Greg, such a great question. That's my primary role and function, which is to remove those barriers so that various members of the community, whether it be small business or workforce, that they have an opportunity to participate, especially in a mega project like this one of the automated people mover. So I would say the biggest issue I see is the resources, but that's something that as a joint venture, that's something we identified early on to make sure that we address. So we have various resources that we're extending to the local community, whether it be a training institute, it's called the Links Training Institute of Los Angeles. So that is comprised of 8 various tracks to engage the local workforce and address those barriers that we just talked about. How do they overcome them? Whether it be financial planning, for example, there might be someone within the workforce that hasn't had a bank account for some time, maybe released from incarceration and now trying to get a job opportunity to work on this project. But now what does banking look like? So there's various partners that we partner with for opportunities for that. We have also a small business training institute where we partner with various resources within the community to talk about either safety, to talk about business planning, to talk about strategy, talk about scaling. And then we also have it's 8 tracks, but I'm talking about the ones that really are the higher ones rather than going to each one specifically. And then there's the youth engagement, because we identify within construction, there's a high population of people that are going to retire. So what does that look like? That looks like we need to get out there in front of it and start recruiting, talking about middle school, high school, those who are going to continuation school, but really looking at how to build that pipeline and showing them people that look like them. Most importantly, people, when they see people that look and are like them, they're more inclined to go in that avenue. And I never thought I would be in construction. That was not my plan of at all. I thought I would be into politics and education politics, actually, in school boards overseeing. But like I said, I raised my hand, and then there was someone who reached back and said, okay, here's an opportunity for you. And then partnering with many phenomenal women in this industry like Robin, who are reaching back, doing some great work out there, such as, hopefully she shares Demo Chicks, which is an amazing nonprofit that she has launched about a year ago to really make sure that more of us are at the table, more of us are prepared, more of us are knowledgeable. So this removing those barriers, it was the biggest hurdle. And once we started thinking about those initiatives, what did that look like? We had this what if model. That was our beautiful part about our project team, is what can we do? And we used it on a demand-based initiative. Like, if we could really think outside the box, what does it look like? How do we remove these barriers so that more people would take advantage? I'm not saying this, it's there's still worries to make improvements. But the one thing that we did do is come to the table with resources and with removal of barriers and that kind of thinking.
All right, that's a perfect segue. So, Robin, I know a little bit about your Demo Chicks there, and want to tell the people a little bit about Demo Chicks, and then I'd like for you to just share, like, okay, when you're talking to the youth in these school ages, how surprised are they to find out the depth of the types of jobs they can get in construction?
Okay, before I answer that question, can I speak to the last question?
Yes.
And so Dr. G and her team are doing a tremendous amount of work in the industry. But we have to remember that changing a culture takes time, right? And so there's a network out there that's pre-existing, and it's not going to change overnight. It's not going to change maybe in a matter of years. But all the training programs that she's mentioned, they have excellent speakers, excellent information. They're a valuable resource. And I want to say that, so I've been in business for 11 years. The first 7 years, being a certified firm wasn't a factor because I built the business on one-offs, and people, it didn't matter if I was certified or not, but I had my certifications. So I was always prepared, like she said. So I filed my taxes every year. I had all my certifications. I paid all my insurances. I had everything in place. So when that opportunity presented itself, I was ready. So you do have to be business ready. And I was not one of those firms where they showed up and I wasn't prepared. Now, capacity building was another thing, right? I may not have had the big team, but I was ready to do business. And so thank you, Dr. G, for all you and your team do to get companies prepared. So the children, so Demo Chicks was launched. I actually had my first big demolition project in 2018. We took down a federal prison, Boron Prison, out in the middle of nowhere. There were 122 structures, 2-story buildings, tanks, and I was so amazed at that project because we had to procure it, and then there were some hazardous materials because there was an old survey, lead and asbestos. There was an old survey and it has to be current, so we had to redo the survey. We had to get rid of the hazardous materials, and then we demolished the buildings and the structures. And I found out you don't just knock a building down and then load all the materials in a truck. You have to recycle what you can recycle. So I was just amazed at that project. And I was out there sucking at sand, so that I can see and learn. And it was pretty exciting. And we finished that project ahead of time with 0 injuries. So proud to say that. And as a result of that, if my friend is listening, I'm gonna let her know I'm not gonna curse. Because when I tell this story, she said, well, that's not how it happened. But what happens after you knock down a prison and you're hanging out with your girlfriend in New Jersey in an Italian restaurant? You start throwing stuff around. She was like, you knock stuff down, and she didn't say stuff. And so we talked, and then Demo Chicks was born. And so my nephew created the image. So Demo Chicks was actually a social media image before it was a nonprofit. When I talked to people about it, they got excited, and I would show the image on my phone and they just loved it. So we had 2 images. We had the young image and then me, and everyone chose the young image. So that's how it was born. I mean, that's the short version of the story. And so what we like Dr. G said, if people see it, they can be it, right? So we want girls to see other women who are actually doing it, not just talking about it. It's okay to have counselors and teachers and people who talk about it. But I was saying, well, why is Demo Chicks catching on? I mean, there's STEM programs, there are all these programs out there. And they said, well, Robin, because you're actually doing it. You don't have to, run a nonprofit. You're out in the field. You can continue to do what you're doing, but you're giving back. And it's you, like you are living, you are the Demo Chick. And I was like, oh, wow, I am. And so that's what makes it so magical, I think. And what we're doing, we're just providing the opportunity. I say we're a feeder organization because we're young, right? We're a year old. And so we want to pique their interest, right? We want to show them what's available and what's possible. And we're all encompassing, right? So while we're focusing on demolition, construction, and non-traditional careers, we also want to talk about people like Dr. G. If you are paving the way, you're breaking through barriers, you are an honorary Demo Chick. So we're just empowering women as a whole. And last year, Dr. G was one of our honorees. I celebrated 10 years in business, and we officially launched Demo Chicks on August 17th. Wow. And Dr. G was one of our honorees, and you will see some photos this week just highlighting all the women that we recognize. I hope I answered your question because I forgot.
No, this is fascinating conversation. Now the whole thing is when you're out there, you're telling the young people about people like Dr. G and all of the great stuff. Now, what's the young people's reactions when they learn that there's all these different types of jobs that are within the construction industry?
Well, there's a wide range. Some say, I can knock stuff down. I want to do that. Or some of their parents say, this girl got a lot of energy. She needs to knock something down. But I think it gives them hope, right? It gives them hope. Mia Hernandez, who was one of our scholarship recipients, first year nonprofit, we gave out 5 scholarships. So Mia tells this story, and she says how in school, you hear all the boys talking about, well, my dad's an engineer, and you hear those stories. And I heard her say, well, Robin has this organization with a bunch of women. If Robin can do this, so can I. And I was like, wow, it's working. So that's what you get, is resonating with them. And they get excited about it, the possibilities. But not everybody wants to be out in the field. So I know Dr. G is one of the few Black women who's the vice president of a major construction company. And so you tell Dr. G's story, and then me as a business owner. So you can play anywhere you like to play. If you want to work in the trades, if you want to work in engineering, or if you want to be an executive.
Okay, so Dr. G, I got to ask you, so how many sisters are in like when you look across the breadth of your at your level, like at these ginormous companies, how many people that look like you?
It's very few. It's very, very few and far. And so every time I hear that, it brings tears to my eyes, because it's just thinking about just the opportunity to make change. It doesn't have to stay there. It doesn't have to remain there. There are so many initiatives, even pre the current state of our country, that were happening to make sure that we have more engagement, more diversity, more promotion, more growth within the senior levels for various companies. But Robin, you're right. It is such an honor to even serve at this capacity. And people are, when I go to the youth programs or support my youth engagement coordinator, Regina, on the project, by going to various presentations, the young people of all ethnic backgrounds are absolutely surprised. They're like, wow, you're a vice president. What does that mean? And, I have to educate them and tell them, like, in construction, there's so many different positions. There's so many different facets. You can go to various programs that they have available out there, such as the National Organization of Minority Architects. They have a summer camp. There's also ACES, which is Architects, Construction, Engineering, Science program that they have at high schools and to engage youth and young adults. So there's all this effort to get more exposure to providing. There's also demo chicks, and there's also tiaras and hard hats that provide more awareness to our youth and young adults about opportunities for them and how they can be involved and engaged. But you're right, it's very far and few. And then you talk about the next level up, which is a C-suite level. That's a whole nother reduction in population as far as diversity at that level, which is something that I believe many different groups have been tackling as far as how to make those changes, especially in the more current conditions.
Wow, that's incredible. Now there's John Osborne is writing in. He's asking, how do you feel about reinvigorated trade education in high school? So I guess that's the whole thing. So, maybe I'm showing my age, but, we had auto shop, we had, metal shop. We had all of these shops in high school that you could take. Typically the boys, they did that, but, that was just showing my age now. I mean, but, the fact of the matter is you had these courses in school, and I guess, over time they've gone away. And so the question is pretty good. He's asking, how do you feel about reinvigorated trade education in high school?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely needed, because the more exposure, the more awareness, the more the industry will be able to provide awareness and information about opportunities. There's various programs. There's so many different initiatives right now, especially when it comes to awareness of construction opportunities and filtering them back into the school. There's a partnership that the Los Angeles Unified School District has with LAWA to engage youth and young adults into the trades. And then there's also AGC, Associated General Contractors, that has a construction education foundation that I have the honor of serving on that board, that has a program called Build California. The same an effort, going back to the schools and looking strategically at how do we build this workforce for the future, so that when we have to build all these great infrastructure projects, we have someone to actually build it.
Wow. That's really, really something. Now, when you go out on the site, okay, so you're, making sure Flatiron is doing their thing. You're going around. I guess I'm assuming your job is office to office and all of that. Now, what happens when you put your hard hat on and your boots and you're going out onto the site? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for inclusion, looking for the workforce, the diversity in the workforce. Yeah, I can look at the numbers, but it's nothing like those stories from the people you're touching. Nothing like hearing how you changed their life over and over again. And to be in that conversation, in that room, to me, it's just the way to make an impact. You got the numbers, you got the dollars, but you have those stories. People that say, because of you, I think someone wrote me recently, because of you, Dr. G, I wouldn't have been on this project. That conversation you told me about going to this particular pre-apprenticeship program got me into here. Or this one program that I love to partner with is Big John from Second Call, which has a program that works with ex-offenders, getting them back into the trades, or getting into the trades and giving them a career, not just a job, but a long-term career, and having those stories. And I go to those meetings, I sit in the actual classes, and I hear the stories about the lives that construction has changed and giving them an opportunity, whereas before they wouldn't have had an opportunity. But this is why these positions, and I make it a point for me to go out to the field, whether it be workforce or even looking at some of the trades, talking to, the small businesses, talking to them specifically. What could you, we had to do a training program, what would help you? Or maybe there be something that is maybe a barrier to them. How can we help you grow? Because all it is like, everyone kind of knows someone and connections, right? And it's connecting them to the right person or hearing the right story. I was in a small business showcase not long ago, and this one small business was telling me about her service, her stories, and she was telling me about this water treatment. She didn't know what, I didn't tell her what company it was. I didn't go into a whole background and stuff like that. So we were talking specifically about water treatment facilities, and she was telling me about this amazing company she worked with and how they helped her and they provided resources. And there were so many, the procurement corporate director sat down with her, went through her contract, and they helped her prevent so many different financial issues. And I said, hey, could you tell me what company that is? Lo and behold, she said Flatiron. And now, yeah. And the oddest part, because it was so just like mind blowing. The oddest part, I happened to talk to that person who was walking her through that process, and he said, let's get her, let's just have that follow-up conversation with her, because the stories like those, that you don't know the impact that you're making while you're making it. He just thought he was helping her out. He's like, I was just helping her with her contract, making sure she didn't have any issues, any red flags that I saw in it, making sure that we both had an agreement and we can see her thrive. Right. So I'm like, let's have that conversation. Let's bring her back. And now we're working with her more on like a mentor protege program, just having those side conversations. And eventually I want to see this grow out to others. Right. Once we finish and flesh it out, what it looks like and how does it grow. But it was organic. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about, these building.
That's really, really awesome. John is saying the construction jobs, especially those union jobs and big infrastructure projects, would help to narrow the wealth divide. Do you agree with that, Robin?
Oh, absolutely. And I really, John and his wife, Dr., they are tremendous supporters. They're supporters of DemoChix, and I really appreciate that. And I have to say this because my board and my team will be really upset with me if I don't. So one thing with DemoChix, what we're doing virtual, it's called DemoChix Online. So we are actually having monthly workshops for youth and others as well. So the first two, we've done experiments. We did a chemical engineering experiment, and the second one was for architecture and construction. And so it's a Zoom call. The kids have their materials and they're building or they're participating in the experiment. And next week, August 27th, 3:00 Pacific time and 7:00 Eastern time, we are going to have an open house. So it's going to be something for elementary, middle, and high school students. We'll have breakout sessions. My sister, who's an educator, Shannon Johnson. I like giving shout outs. I like acknowledging.
That's right. Yes, one of her as you should.
Well, so, and so she runs it, and it's just amazing. So you go to demochix.com, get the information. But definitely, so one of the things with DemoChix is we want our youth to be well-rounded. So it's learning the trade, it's learning about engineering, it's learning about non-traditional careers, but it's also emotional health. We don't actually have a spiritual component within DemoChix, but I am a child of God and I represent that in everything that I do. But then there's that financial piece, right? And we want to partner with others because we're not trying to be everything, right? So similar to what Dr. G and Flatiron's doing on that Links project, they are partnering with experts in different areas and bringing that information. So that's what we like to do. We'll probably talk with someone like Marie Deary when we talk about the financial piece, but we think that it needs to be well-rounded because these opportunities could change a person's zip code. If they want to leave, if they want to stay, that's fine too. But at least they have that opportunity. They have that option.
Mm-hmm. This is really, really fascinating. I'm loving this. Now, Dr. G, let me ask you a question. So the People Mover, so I'll be able to park my car over there by West Angeles Church, get on the train and ride all the way out to the airport, get on the People Mover and go right to my gate and fly off to Africa.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And every 2 minutes, the train will run.
Every 2 minutes. Wow. Oh, that's incredible. Okay. What? Good stuff. Okay. Robin, I'm curious. My curiosity bug has got me. So when you're removing hazardous material, like, what's that like? So your workers are out there in the big hazmat suits and all that whole thing?
Okay, so all right, so I can't be on conversations with Greg J, coffee conversation, without taking a sip of coffee.
Yeah.
I love the Demo Chick cup. I love it. I love it.
Oh,
Love it.
yes. Okay, so this industry is highly regulated,
Hmm.
right? So the Department of Toxic Substance Control and other agencies mandate, regulate, dictate how you will operate.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're in a building, you're dealing with asbestos, the area has to be closed off. And yes, they will wear hazmat suits. Employees are protected. If you have if you're a certified asbestos consultant or a certified asbestos worker, there's requirements that you be tested periodically to make sure that your blood isn't contaminated and you stay healthy. But yes, definitely regulated. They're out there in the suits in the hot zone. I'm not in the hot zone. I'm outside the hot zone trying to take a picture through the poly on occasion when they're setting up. I mean, it's a very serious operation because lives are at stake, people's health are at stake. So it's very serious. But yes, we're out there and we're making sure that employees are safe and the workplace is safe and that we don't have looky-loos coming on board. I mean, it's very serious. I mean, we have fun. Like while they're setting up, I might say, wait a minute, and I'll pose, take a picture. But it's a very serious operation. And even when you have a demolition project, right? Because that's heavy equipment. People have to be focused. There's no cell phone uses, no goofing off. And I actually have a mentor. I'm an 8A firm, so I'm certified by the Small Business Administration, and they have a mentor protege program. And my mentor is no nonsense. He does not play. He's from Alabama. He's been in the business for like 35 years. I think he was one of the only Black demolition contractors in Long Beach many years ago, has his own yard and own equipment. And he is tough when you're on a job site. But I watch him execute a project, like something that would take me as a beginner 3 weeks to execute. He can knock it out in a week and a half.
Wow.
So it's amazing to watch him work.
Wow. Now, from time to time, do you do the implosions and all that too?
It's so funny because even with Demo Chicks, we have the wrecking ball. I have never seen a wrecking ball. We use excavators. I mean, it's pretty fascinating though, right? Because they're like extended hands. So you'll see the machine and it's like tugging. And then when it's time, it goes, bam, knocks the building down. It's pretty exciting. So so I'm going to post some videos so that people can see, but it's amazing work.
Do you have one now you could share there? You can share a video if you have one.
Do not want me to mess with this technology. I'd be like, trying to show a video.
All right. Well, that's really good stuff. Now, what's the biggest project, Robin, like the biggest one that you took on? And let's say you walked into it by faith. You didn't know if you were big enough, but you took it and you went in there and knocked it out of the park.
Well, see, I don't have the challenge of being big enough because we have partners. Dr. G mentioned earlier, they're teaming. So I'm not going to walk into a situation and jeopardize anything because CTI is I'm working on the multiple streams, but right now CTI, that's my livelihood. I mean, it's what I do. It's not a part-time thing. It's not a side hustle. It is my business. And so I will seek a partner. So for the prison project, that was a $4 million project. Of course, I sought out an experienced demolition contractor. Matter of fact, I had 2 contractors on that project. And because it was demolition, it was a 4-month project, which was really exciting. But our first multi-million-dollar project was actually the 405, the Sepulveda widening. Remember Carmageddon?
Oh, Carmageddon.
Yeah. So
you did that.
We didn't take down that bridge, but we hauled lead contaminated soil. Because back in the day, there was lead in gasoline. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
There was lead in gasoline. So whenever there's a freeway project, the soil has to be tested to see if there's deposits of lead. It's called aerial deposited lead.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's lead, you have to do sampling because you're concerned about the employees, right? And depending on the levels of lead that's still present, we will have to do monitoring of the employees while they're working. So they wear little pumps on, so it's testing the air that they're breathing in. And so on that project, we actually hauled away lead contaminated soil and we moved dirt from site to site because you reuse the dirt if it's clean. And we monitor employees and we developed a few plans. And that was our very first large project. And then we also did some bird and bat exclusionary device installation. You're probably aware that you cannot just move a bird nest for a project. So prior to the project starting up, we have biologists going in to make sure there are no birds in the vicinity, because once they start nesting, you cannot move that nest. And so we did bridge inspections, but that was over a 3-year period. And we're currently working on the 405. I love the 405. We're currently working on the 405 in Orange County in a different capacity. In 2017, CTI launched their construction management division. So now we have engineers and other staff working on that project under Parsons. And that's really exciting because they show up at someone else's location. I make sure that they're paid and they have their benefits and their 401k, but I am not supervising them directly. So that brings even more credibility to CTI as an engineering firm, because here we have employees who can help build your project. But these engineers are working in the office. They're not out in the field. They're more managing the construction process.
Wow, that's I'm impressed. This is good stuff. So let me ask you all. So as you guys know, I'm all things Africa, constantly building bridges of music, arts, and culture between Africa and African America. I think it's essential that we really unite with our brothers and sisters on the continent. And as we look across to the continent of Africa, we see infrastructure is very much needed. And I think the other day I was talking to Dr. G, and she was just telling me about, a little bit more about what she does. And my brain just started spinning because I know that if the Chinese, I know the French, I know all of these European major construction people are out there helping these nations build infrastructure, much like what you're doing here. And, have you ever thought about creating some sort of, linkage over in Africa and being a global Black company?
What's that? Oh, of course. So I had the opportunity to visit South Africa in 2009, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with a country full of Black folks. It was just exciting and amazing. And so I went back in 2011, and so I'm a giver. I like to contribute. And I went back and I did a vision board workshop. I did a business workshop. And I was like, wow, I have international speaking credits. It was awesome. And then at the time I was working, and I had to come back to my cubicle. I was like, oh, this is painful, But so while I was there, of course, I connected with some people and we started a business. But what I learned, you have to be there, right? Because even if you have someone there, but you just have to be there. So I made some really good connections, and we're still in touch. Some of them might be on the line now, but given the opportunity to launch something in Africa, I would do it in a heartbeat. And I also served as the chair of the Long Beach Mombasa Sister Cities Association several years ago. And we had a few delegation visits, Mombasa, Kenya, and we've talked about, opportunities as well. But what I learned is I have to build my solid foundation so that when I branch out, I don't mess up what I have going on here, but definitely interested in the opportunity in Africa.
What about you, Dr. G?
Absolutely. But of course, I don't think we have any projects at this time in Africa, but there are many different groups that I've identified. I was trying to remember the organization's name, but it was a program, and she's probably going to kill me, program in Ghana that's designed to prepare women for construction careers. And so what her job is just that, finding women in local villages, getting them apprenticeship program ready, and then going into the various different trades.
Mhm.
So she's amazing. And like I said, her name right now, I can't remember her various name. And then there's also Volunteer Build Ghana as well. There's a program out there.
Because I saw I just keep up with all of this stuff. I'm all the time, I'm just connected with Africa. The hazardous material disposal business that you have there, Robin, is one of the biggest investment opportunities on the continent. They don't have the stringent requirements of disposing of stuff, in many regions of the continent. And there's a guy in India, I can't recall his name, but there's a guy in India who he has developed a multi-billion-dollar, corporation just removing hazardous materials from all these nations across the continent. Very, very much a great opportunity. But I think too, it would be great for us to link in and begin to build this exchange over there. And I'm going to introduce both of you to my new friend, the former ambassador to the African Union to the United States and her African Diaspora Development Institute. Your expertise is needed. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this for a minute. So you went to South Africa. Your biggest what hit you the most in your heart?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, just Black people everywhere. It was just so exciting to see. But then I was told that like people may not look you in your eyes and speak to you because there's that oppression, right? And for me to meet people who were my age, who had experienced not being able to move to a neighborhood, who were discriminated against in a way. I mean, I'm not in denial, we are discriminated against, but like openly, like couldn't go to certain beaches to think that they experienced that. I might hear that from my parents or grandparents, but they lived it. And in order to live on a certain block, they had to get a letter from the neighbor on each side. Mm-hmm. And it was just mind blowing. Mm-hmm. But I just fell in love with, because the Black people were working. They were the construction workers, right? They were in all the stores. There was a carton of milk that had a Black person on it. And I'm like, that's a shame that I'm getting excited about all these things, right? Mm-hmm. But it was just very, very empowering. And when I was there, I met an environmental law attorney and his wife, who was the premier. She was the press person for the premier. And that's a position within the government. And I was like, that's a sign, right? So I go to South Africa, I meet an environmental attorney and someone in government. I should be doing business here. So I made some solid connections, but it was just Black people everywhere. And then because they didn't have minority programs, they had Black business programs, mm-hmm. because they knew the Black folks were oppressed and they needed the opportunities. And there were more opportunities if a South African Black firm partnered with the American Black firm. So it was just a lot of opportunities. But like I said, I had to stay focused on what I was working on here. But I just loved it.
It's interesting because all the years that I have been going to, Africa on an annual basis, I often wonder, why aren't, the multinational corporations, like what happened to the big, Black businesses? Why are we seeing so much, the Chinese and other nationalities coming in and doing this? And you're right, we try to keep this one here at the house, straight before we could get out to across the waters. But I think it's important for us to begin to really think about that. How can we, exert our influence to our brothers and sisters over in Africa, so that we all can have some ownership in the development of these countries. Now, I would like to just kind of segue from this. We talk about oppression and everything, and I'm thinking, Dr. G, that your job is heavily male, probably more Caucasian. What kind of pressures do you see? And do you see in this new age of everybody saying Black Lives Matter, are people changing, or is it lip service?
Absolutely, hands down. You got to change. You got to change to address these concerns, with your employees, with your business clients, and it's a must. It wasn't, I mean, before it could be the lip services that various companies or various individuals were doing, but now it's a must. I think back to about 2 or 3 years ago, before I even started with the Flatiron, that was something that we started to do. It was interesting. So we started that whole initiative internally, talking about diversity and inclusion and rolling out various programs from inclusive leadership to unconscious bias training to get our leaderships more clarity on what the key issues are facing. Mm-hmm. And then now with the current state of our country is changing the lens, right? Having those really open dialogue where we had town hall meetings, we've had various engagement conversations from our diversity group about how do we say this and how do we listen, how do we change, and what does it all entail? So absolutely, I see more and more companies that were even getting calls from smaller firms saying, "Hey, Dr. G, I heard you on whatever a panel, or even at, I met you before at a different event. So, or even who are you using for your diversity and inclusion training?" Those are the things that now I'm seeing more efforts for inclusion, more initiatives from programs being launched earlier, where people are thinking, rather than just thinking about the infrastructures or the models or the business components. Some people are just like, let's just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. We understand the community is hurting. We understand there's people that need to be heard within the organization. And how do we address that? And it's one, by learning, listening, and hearing, right? You got to learn it. You got to understand what the problems are out there. And then that takes by listening, hearing, and opening, being objective to listen open-mindedly, and then I forgot the last thing. That's what I was saying.
It's a lot.
Learning, listening, and hearing, maybe.
It's a lot. Yes. Well, here we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Two dynamic women, sisters doing big things out there in the construction world. Man, I mean, I bow down. Great stuff. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Any last words you want to say to the people? Go ahead, Dr. G.
Well, one, Greg, thank you so much for having us both on this conversation, especially at this time. It's critical that we're providing more information, more awareness to opportunities in construction, especially for us as African-American women, because the opportunities are there, but it takes just that one person, like I talked about earlier, raising their hand, saying that, hey, I'll try it out. Let me look into it. And who would have thought? If you look at Robin's journey, you look at my journey, you look at there's so many other women who would have maybe not gone this traditional route of construction, but thinking outside the box, taking on, and also thinking about that one area that might be needed. Because now the industry is pivoting. So what does it look like? There's so many new opportunities that before weren't thought about. So it's how do you leverage that with this new platform of virtual operations to address the emergency concerns that are happening in our communities? So think out the box, be open, and raise your hand.
All right, Robin.
All righty. So, Greg, thank you so much for this opportunity, for just the professionalism of your platform. I felt like I was backstage when I was faded out on the side. And thank you for all those who tuned in. Dr. Gloria, she is there, always very vocal and supportive. Appreciate that. And Dr. J. Matoria Houston, my elementary school friend. I had a chance to look at some of the chats. And I just want to say that as a person who always, that was my mom's rebellious child. So I don't like to sound like everybody else, but sometimes those quotes work. Like, if you can see it, you can be it, right? So you're seeing it right before your eyes. There are no excuses, but you have to put in the work. People ask me, well, they'll come up me with this $20 million opportunity for the federal government. And I said, well, who's going to write that up? Like, where all these people are going to do the work? It's not like magic. You have to put in the work. Mm-hmm. But if I can do it, because I didn't have this background, I wasn't on a path to become an engineer and own my own company. I took a detour right? I mean, I worked for 8 years. And so I worked very, very hard. I mean, for 7 years, I wasn't profitable, right? So when people say, I want to do what you do, I want to be where you are, I'm like, well, can you be, conservative for 7 years and wait, So it doesn't happen overnight, but it could. But you have to put in the work. There's 3 things that I like to always close. Well, 4 things I like to close with. Find somebody to teach you in 15 minutes what it took them 20 years to learn, right? A little tidbit. Like Dr. G said, stay focused. I mean, you can kind of look around, but you got to keep your eye on the prize. And you have to have faith, right? You have to believe that it's going to happen, even if you don't see how. But if you put in the work and you keep looking forward, and the 4th thing, you're gonna have to buy the book to get.
Is the book complete?
Well, the book is in my head. But,
okay, all right.
I think pull it out of me, so it may be coming out soon.
All right, that's what's up. All right, everybody. Dr. Giovanna Brasfield, Robin Thorne. Look, I'm going to go get my hard hat. I actually have a hard hat back there, and I was going to wear it this morning, but I forgot it. Because I was trying to get ready. I was going to come on with my hard hat from the Curve on Crenshaw and 54th, and I got me a hard hat, and I was going to wear it, But, this is really, really awesome. You guys are really tremendous women, and I'm just honored to know you. I'll say that publicly. Honored to know you. Dr. G, me and you, boy, this lady here, she's like doing the workouts at 4:00 in the morning that I just look at them and just go, what? So Dr. G is probably pressed about 500 pounds this morning already before she even got to the office to handle ginormous construction projects. I just want to let you know who she is. She's not to be messed with.
And she's a super mom. She's a super mom.
Yeah, a super mom. That's right. Yes. All right, you guys. There it is. Having fun. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll put there. Dr. G, how can we get a hold of you?
So, 1, LinkedIn. Always send me a LinkedIn message, or you can go to linxs.com, which will provide more information on the Automated People Mover project, or just reach out to Greg. I'm right here.
Robin, how can we get a hold of you?
Well, you can visit our website at ctienviro.com, and I'm sure someone's going to put it in the chat.
Yep.
ctienviro.com or demochicks.com, and that's chicks with an S, demochicks.com. And while it's great to, look for opportunities or look for opportunities for yourself, it's also good to bring some.
And share some, right? Share. If you see something with your friends, share it with them. Yeah. Wow. That's how it goes. Each one teach one. Bring one.
I love it. Well, everybody, there you have it. We'll have all of their information here. You can, if you missed this one, we stream it pretty frequently throughout the day, but you can also go to Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com, and see the replay also there. Kalimba Song Coffee Company, farmer direct, imported from small farmers in the country of Cameroon, West Africa. You can get it. KalimbaSongCoffeeCompany.com. Make your order today. We'll send it right on out. I think that's all that I have. Listen to Beach City Radio. Thank you guys for your support. We're growing, and we just try to be a major force in this digital world here. We are Black owned, and we're talking culturally relevant conversations, culturally relevant music, but from a global perspective. Now, we are representing Long Beach because that's where we are. That's our studio is right in the heart of the beach. So, but we are looking through a lens of global culture. And Monday, I might tell y'all a little bit about how that all came about. We're going to be talking on Thursday to, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if he's Ludlow Creary Sr. or what, but, Mr. Brother Ludlow Creary, famous attorney who's come on here a couple of times and just giving us some legal, framework for what we're seeing in the news. We're going to talk to his dad, who founded a major hospital in the city of Los Angeles and has quite the legacy of Black history in Southern California. We're going to talk to our elders and find out, what it took back in the day to build and achieve and uplift our people. That's what we want to do. We want to provide you with innovation. We want to give you information, and we want to inspire you at all times. That's what we're doing here. Coffee Conversations, Beach City Radio. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget, love one another. Love one another. Love one another. Peace and blessings.